known for its culture and tradition. Situated in northern Nigeria. We're here to visit a man with royal roots, a banker by trade, who rose up the ranks to become governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. A keen academic with a passion for debating and a commitment to the truth. He is no stranger to controversy and international headlines. A family man who is dedicated to public service and has become an icon in the eyes of many. We're here to speak to the Emir of Kano, Mohammed Sanusi II. Your Highness, thank you very much. I read somewhere that it has been your lifelong wish to become the Emir of Kano. Is that true first, and how does it feel for that wish to come true?
You know, we say that usually it's not taught for children of lawyers to want to be lawyers and children of doctors to want to be doctors, but we all know that out of the 100 or 1,000 princes that you have, only one will be Emir at one point in time.
Yeah.
And we leave it to God to decide. But yes, it's something that I've always wanted. I've grown up, I grew up in this palace. I've never really wanted to be anything other than what my family was. But it's not something you work for. You have your education, you have your career, you have opportunities that you take, and you're not going to spend your time obsessed by something that you know is going to happen to only one person, and it may not be you. So if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, it's God's will.
Sanusi Lamido Sanusi, who holds degrees in economics and Islamic studies, was crowned as the 14th Emir of Kano in 2014. The appointment makes him one of the most influential Muslim leaders in Nigeria. Can you talk about how the Emir's role is important to Kano itself and important to the north and to Nigeria?
The Emirs are no longer the political authority constitutionally. They are elected governors. We continue to be in charge of the mosques, continue to be justices of the peace. Every day, if you come Monday to Thursday, there are people who come with issues. Some of them farm disputes. There are marital issues between husbands and wives, issues between neighbors, daughters who complain about being forced into marriage. And our role really is to address those concerns. 70% of the issues that happen between people in civil cases in this part of the country don't go to court. The court system is too expensive. They do recognize this system, they respect it, and they feel they'll get justice. And usually when we adjudicate, they abide by the adjudication.
Kano has been subject to terrorist attacks in recent times, the deadliest of which occurred in November 2014, when suicide bombers and gunmen attacked the Kano Central Mosque during Friday prayers. How does it feel that it's so close to home and it's happening to your people?
Well, you know, we're going through difficult times, and we are going through a very difficult period in our nation's history. And it's a combination of things. There is the, obviously, fact that you have a murderous group that kills people, that claims to be Muslim and obviously has killed more Muslims than any other group you can think of. We're dealing not just with a security problem, which hopefully can be addressed militarily in the short term.
Yeah.
You're dealing with an entire way of life that's disappeared. I mean, think of a town like Chibok. You know, if those girls came back, how are they going to, you know, and we've got to deal with those issues. You've got to deal with an economy. You've got to revive agriculture. You've got to have industrialization. And frankly, some of the serious governance issues we've had, some of the very bad economic choices that we made in the past, policy choices we made in the past, have contributed to the problems that we have. Having said that, to your question, we have to live with it. We have to tell people that they need to have courage. The worst thing you can do to yourselves is be scared by terrorists and run away and change your life. You've got to understand that this is not religion and they do not need support and they should not be feared. We have to remain true to our values and our principles, and hopefully with the right political will on the part of authorities, we'll defeat them.
Do you have more confidence within the new administration coming in to deal with such issues?
Well, first of all, if you've tried something for 16 years and it doesn't seem to be working, it's worthwhile to try something else. I think there is the whole issue of expectations that need to be managed.
Yes.
The problems are very severe. When I was governor, one of the issues I raised was that 80% of federal government revenue was spent on personnel costs. So you've got a country of 167 million people spending 80% of its revenue maintaining 1 million public offices, and the remaining 20% for the remaining 166 million people. And that is the money that's going to be used to build schools, to build hospitals, to build roads, to give us power. It's not going to work.
So it sounds like you were quite in favour of change.
I personally, I'm not supposed to be in any kind of partisan politics, but I'm a Nigerian, where I think that the country, it's good for the country for a number of reasons. First of all, look, the very fact that we now know that an incumbent president does not have an automatic second ticket is going to improve the behavior of presidents.
Absolutely.
I mean, people are going to know that the electorate, this is the first time votes are really counting. And if we can continue with that, then people are going to know that if you want to win an election, you've got to serve the people. And that's how the rest of the world has moved on.
But let's talk about the personalities for a short while. So in terms of your relationship with Jonathan now, how is your relationship like? Have you spoken to him since he lost the elections?
No, I haven't. I've always had a very formal relationship with him. I met him in Abuja when I was appointed governor of Central Bank. He was vice president. I worked with him in an official capacity. It's not as if we were personal friends or anything. I mean, if you have a job, you do your job. I was governor of Central Bank. My job was stability. And I know there are people who think their job is to make their boss happy. And I always say that if the boss wants to be happy, he goes to his wife. He doesn't go to Central Bank governor. My job was to keep inflation down, have a stable exchange rate, make sure the banks were safe, work on the payment system, get financial inclusion, and that's my job. Now, in doing that job, people might be happy or they may not be happy, so long as the job was done. That was my role as governor of Central Bank. If I cannot do the job the way my conscience says I should do it, it's not worth having. I can always do something else. And hey, look at me now. This is, for me, better than being governor of Central Bank. So I was kicked up. So no, I haven't spoken to him. There's obviously no problem at all. And if I do see him, I will speak to him.
Okay. The reason I ask is because, of course, we all know about the situation that happened in terms of when you were governor and the alleged missing $20 billion, which led to your suspension then.
No, but that was my choice. I mean, if you don't want to get into trouble, you don't ask uncomfortable questions.
Okay.
I mean, if you did the kind of thing I did, you had to be prepared for certain consequences. So I do think probably if I were President Jonathan, I would have fired me as well. So I don't think it's. I mean, other people would see it and keep quiet, and if you chose not to keep quiet, then you must be ready to accept the consequences. And the good thing is, okay, now you've had a PwC report.
Yeah.
And the PwC report says, well, it was not 20 billion, it was 18.5 billion. As far as I'm concerned, even based on the PwC report, there is at least $12.5 billion that's been diverted from the country. And it was very clear to me as governor of Central Bank that money belonging to the Federation is not coming.
Yeah.
It was very clear to me that if we did not bring in that money when oil price was high, if oil price crashed, we were going to have major problems with the exchange rates, with interest rates, with inflation, probably with the banking system and economic growth, and all of that has happened. And since my job was stability, if I felt those leakages were a potential source of instability, I had a responsibility to shout. And so I did my job. I'm only responsible for my actions. The president did what he felt he had to do, and history will judge who's right.
Like you said, you were just doing your job, but you must have known when you made that announcement, certain repercussions would come of it. Were you?
I was warned before I got to the Senate that there would be consequences.
Okay, but you weren't scared, you weren't deterred, you didn't think?
It's totally immaterial, whether you're scared or not. I mean, you're a human being, and yes, you have a family. It could have been worse. I could have been shot. I could have lost my life. You never can tell. And you could have been locked up when I was suspended in Niger. If I had landed in Abuja, I probably would have been arrested and held by SSS. There could have been trumped up charges. And you can think of any kind of scenario that would have been much, much worse than happened.
At the height of his banking career in 2009, Sanusi Lamido Sanusi was appointed governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria by the late former president, Yar'Adua. Okay, so going back to, I guess, your former life when you were a banker, why was banking the industry that you chose?
I didn't. Actually, I think I've always asked myself that. I never, throughout my university days, I had very little respect for banking as a profession. I never thought it was something I wanted to do. I started off as an academic, and my ambition was to be a professor of economics. Okay. So I started teaching, and General Buhari again. General Buhari had a coup, and he came into power at a time when the economy was more or less similar to what he's inheriting now, the Second Republic. And he had to introduce austerity measures, which we're talking about. And one of the measures introduced was there would be no more fellowships and scholarships for lecturers for postgraduate studies in areas that were available in Nigerian university. Now, the attraction of being in academics for many young people then was a chance to go abroad. The university would pay, give you a fellowship, and you go and do your PhD in a good university in Europe or America, and then come back and teach. And I was not willing to spend 4 years doing a PhD in a Nigerian university, so I was so angry that I couldn't go. So I applied for a job in Icon at that time, and merchant banking then looked a bit exciting, more exciting than commercial banking. So I got a job in Icon Merchant Bank, and that was how I started off.
The Emir was born in Kano on the 31st of July 1961 to Mohammed Lamido Sanusi and Hajia Saude. He is the second of 7 children. I just want to touch a little bit more on your childhood when you were younger. What kind of child were you? Did you have lots of friends? Were you Mr. Popular? Were you the guy that everyone wanted to know? How are you?
I'm not sure. I don't know. Well, I had a very happy childhood. Extremely playful. I was a lot of trouble for many people, I think. I went to boarding school at a very early age. I went to a Catholic school in Kaduna, St. Anne's. So I spent some time in boarding school, and then my holidays at home. And it makes for a happy childhood when you've got this change in environment. And then from there, I went to King's College, and the same thing. Every holiday I'd be here, and then I'd go off. Yeah. The thing with this palace is it's a very large family. You all grew up with cousins, distant cousins, uncles. I got along well with so many of my friends and cousins, and they've remained very close. I've been very close. As far as the family is concerned, I've always been close to relatives, and I've always believed it was important the family was always important.
So growing up, who were your heroes? Like, who did you look up to?
My biggest hero is my grandfather. And that's the truth. If there's one person that's been a constant in my life, it's been him. Now, my father had one of the greatest influences on me. I remember one thing my father said to me when I was 16 or 17. He said, there are about 100 things a young man wants to be. Okay? But all you need is to look at 2 or 3 things, and you'll be amazed at how, by holding on to 1 or 2 simple rules, you define yourself. And I think later in life, I found one thing to define myself, which is speak truth to power. And so if you look at my entire life, all the problems I've had to do with that. Whether it was National Assembly's 25% or Jonathan's 20 billion or debates I had within the banking system or my share debates when you look at my articles, it was always just telling myself that, look, you know what, no matter what the cost is, if this is the truth, I'm going to say it. And that's now what I'm known for. And that's how I hope to be remembered after my death. Nothing else, just somebody who speaks the truth.
The Emir has 3 wives and 12 children, 5 of which are boys and 7 are girls. How are you as a father to your children? Are you like the cool dad that they can talk to about anything, or are you quite a strict father?
No, I'm not strict. But I must say that I haven't been able to give as much time as I would like to them. And this is one of the challenges of public service, public office. You have to give up some of that. And sometimes, even if you don't have the time to sit down and talk to them, just letting them be around you and watch you and see you and listen to you, rest of people, helps them. I mean, sometimes I'm faced with a situation and I'm saying, how would my father handle this situation? Okay, and I'm able to actually make that judgment because he spent a lot of time talking to me about his own experiences. I suppose everybody, and not just an emir, everybody at one stage in their life turns around and says, I wish I'd spent more time with the kids.
Yeah,
But,
of course.
For the record, I have 3 wives, not 4.
Okay.
But I will have a 4th one.
You will have a 4th one?
Yeah.
Is that anytime soon?
Yeah, I mean, women are so good. You should have as many as you're allowed to have.
Let's touch on what you like to do in your spare time. Do you have any hobbies? Is there anything you do when you're not here being the Emir?
I do love Arsenal football team, and I watch football.
I heard that, yes. Okay.
I would, when I have time, I try to watch them sometimes at the risk of having a heart attack.
Have you ever been to watch them live? Have you ever gone?
Oh
to
yes,
watch them?
actually, a few months ago, I was in Monaco when they beat Monaco 2-0.
Okay.
I went to watch. I went to watch the match.
Yeah.
And sometimes I go to London and they have a game. I haven't been to the Emirates as an emir, but it was something I used to do quite regularly. Every time I was in London, I say, "Is there a match?" I'll confess. Sometimes I would arrange my official meetings in London to be in a week when Arsenal had a match in London.
I also wanted to ask you about your personal style. So when you're not dressed as an emir, are you very much into style and fashion?
I mean, if you noticed throughout my stay in Central Bank, I had basically wore one of 2 things. It was either my Nehru jacket or my bow tie. I mean, I actually was a bow tie person throughout my banking career. Throughout, from the 80s, I was known, you had a small group, myself, Konya Ajayi, Felicia Phillips. There was a small group of people that were known for wearing bow ties. And then too many people started wearing bow ties. So I started wearing my canary jackets. But here, obviously, this institution is one that basically you just have wardrobes and wardrobes and wardrobes and wardrobes, and different things. Yeah.
If you were in the room with a group of young people, what advice would you give them in terms of how to have a happy and a successful life, coming from someone who has achieved that?
Well, first, I think people should always be themselves, okay? I tell my children, do what makes you happy and what you're good at.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm not the kind of father that would tell my child, I want you to be a lawyer, I want you to be a doctor. I have a daughter who just got admission in the American University of Paris, American University in Paris, and she wants to read media studies. Not what you think of a Kano princess, but they must always remember how fortunate they are. Now, for every one child like that that's able to go to the American University in Paris, there are millions of her age mates in this country who can't even get into a Nigerian university.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so when she comes back, what can she do to make it easier for some of those millions? Even if it's just writing in the newspapers and drawing the attention of the world to it, that's something. But you must always know that you have a responsibility. That privilege comes with responsibility. And I think more and more young people understand that.
What is the African dream to you?
I think it's, in a sense, so sad that our continent, so much potential, hasn't made it yet. Having said that, I think Africans need to know that there are many African stories. You have small African countries making a lot of progress. What we need is have the big ones get their act together. How do we get the right leadership in those countries with a vision and with a sense of responsibility? And that's the kind of generation that we need to cultivate. If we want an African dream, we've got to produce Africans. I mean, Africans who are citizens of the world, citizens of the continent, and that's a big ask, but you said a dream, and that's a dream.
Thank you very much, Your Highness, for giving us time to tell us about your life and your African dream.
Yeah, thank you.
And if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to Indani TV channel and you can watch more videos here.